I call to order. This meeting may also be viewed live and remotely on YouTube. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, and I invite those participating remotely to do the same. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. I will start off with a roll call. Please verbally indicate you are present when your name is called. Commissioner Kelly?
Present.
Commissioner Motto? Here. Commissioner Ticky?
Here.
Lascos?
Present.
Alternate Commissioner Usel?
Present.
Myself, Commissioner Harger, Mr. Rossetti, our administrator,
Present.
Ms. Alexandria Castro, our assistant administrator, Ms. Renasos, our recording secretary,
Present.
Charbonneau, our stenographer. Stephanie attending?
She's here.
Okay. Stephanie, if you could just unmute and indicate that you're present at some point. For the record, Commissioner Parkins, alternate Commissioner Onofrio, Mr. Nappi, and Mr. Panico are not available for this evening's meeting. Alternate Commissioner Usel, you being seated for Commissioner Parkins. Can you confirm that, please, that you
Got
heard
it.
that? So much. Okay, I'll be taking an agenda item out of order, and that is item 5, other business. Item A, staff appointments, and I'm going to give Mr. Rossetti the floor for this agenda item. Yeah.
Good evening, everybody. We have a few new staff on board. Some are familiar faces, some are properly new. They are now full-time status, which we are very excited about. I'll let each of them say a couple words. First up, we have Alexandria. She's now our full-time assistant P&Z administrator.
Good evening, everyone.
Good meeting, Alexandria.
Thank you for having me. I've been with the city and specifically the Planning and Zoning Office for the last 3 years. And I am a resident myself, parent of children attending the Shelton Public School System. So I take a sincere pride in being part of a growing city. And I thank you all for this opportunity and continuing to grow together.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So when you call, make sure you ask for Alex.
Good looking one.
And then, let's see, another gentleman who is joining our team, Mr. Ron Baya, who is our zoning enforcement officer. Ron is joining us tonight from Zoom. Oops, there he is.
Finally connected.
Ron, you've got the
How are you? Well, hi, Commission. How are you?
Good.
Hi, Alex and Alexandria. Yeah, I'm Ron Baya. I'm the new zoning enforcement officer for the city of Shelton. I've had a very long career so far. I'm not that old, but I've had a long career. Started very young. I started in New Haven in the late 80s. I retired from the city of New Haven after over 2 decades. I spent some time in New Canaan and Middletown. I had a brief stint in Monroe. And now I'm in Shelton. I'm really looking forward to the opportunity. I think this particular position suits my strengths the best. And so far, I'm in my 3rd week. And everybody, Alex, Alexandria, Lisa, Jimmy, Bernie, everyone's been fantastic, and everyone else I've met in City Hall. And Ginny, I've met you through email, I believe. So everybody's been very nice. And I even said to Alex today on my way out the door, heading home. I said, I can't think of a place I've worked. I've had good stints in everywhere I've been, but I'm really excited about this Shelton opportunity, and I like everything so far very much.
Mhm. Very good.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Thank you.
And unfortunately, the other gentleman this evening who's going to be a zoning inspector for us is probably a familiar face to some of you, named Jim Orizzetti. He's been in town for many years. He will be a zoning inspector for us. He did ask me to read a little letter for him on his behalf, which I will read to you. Dear Commissioners, I would like to thank the Commission for the opportunity to serve the constituents of the city as a zoning inspector. As a former Zoning Board of Appeals Commissioner, the challenges were obvious, the solutions comprehensive, and sometimes complex. But I enjoy servicing the residents with any issue that presents itself. I look forward to having the opportunity to assist our planning and zoning team in its efforts to move our great city forward. Please excuse my absence for this evening as I have a prior commitment. Sincerely and thank you, James Orizzetti.
Very good.
All right.
Any further comments?
I have a question, like, how do you differentiate the roles of the zoning inspector and the zoning enforcement?
So Ron has certifications from the Connecticut Association of Zoning Enforcement Officers. He is a certified zoning enforcement officer. He will be in charge of our zoning enforcement and many of the permits. And he will also oversee the zoning inspectors that we have working with him. You guys have met Bernie before. Bernie helps us with zoning inspections. Jim and Bernie are part-time who will be helping Ron doing inspections, but Ron will be in charge of, he's the head zoning enforcement official.
Mhm.
And
So he would be the one issuing any violation notices or whatever.
correct. So
Yeah.
they would help him pull together reports and pictures, and they'll be working as a zoning kind of enforcement team and an inspection team, but Ron will be in charge of that branch of us.
Does any other commissioner have any other questions for Mr. Rossetti? No, okay. Seeing that there aren't any, I just, on behalf of the commission, I'd like to congratulate all our 3 staff members on their appointment to these positions, and we look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now we'll go on to our regular agenda, and just a couple of points beforehand. Mr. Rossetti will act as a Zoom meeting host. Commissioners will be able to make comments throughout the meeting, and the chair asks that you please identify yourself and wait to be recognized to make sure that we are not all speaking over each other, to make sure our recording secretary is clear as to who is speaking. This evening, we are opening 2 public hearings, and this is the protocol for each. Mr. Rossetti will indicate if any written comments were received from members of the public no later than 24 hours before the start of this evening's meeting to be read into the record. The applicant and/or its associates will make their presentation. The commission can ask questions during the presentation or at its conclusion. The applicant and/or associates can answer P&Z commissioner questions at the time they are presented or at the conclusion of the presentation. The public will then be recognized to comment on the application. The applicant's attorney and/or associates will be given the opportunity to address any comments or questions from the public after the last person from the public has been given the opportunity to speak. If the commission feels further information is needed from the applicant, the chair will ask for a motion to continue the public hearing. If a public hearing remains open, the commission is not allowed to make any public comment, discuss any part of the applicant's and/or his associate's presentation, or receive any additional information from anyone. If the commission feels the applicant and/or his associates have answered all questions and have addressed all concerns from the commission and/or public, the chair will ask for a motion to close the public hearing. Staff will then schedule a discussion about the application at an upcoming commission meeting, during which time the commission will be asked by the chair and how it wants to proceed. I'd also like to share the guidelines for members of the public who choose to speak at the point in the public hearing when the chair calls for public comment. To identify yourself as a member of the public who wishes to speak, please use Zoom's raise your hand feature or dial *9 on your phone. After you are identified by Mr. Rossetti, Please state and spell your name and your address to assist the recording secretary and stenographer when they're preparing the minutes and transcript of the public hearing. Please direct your comments and questions to the chair and to the chair only, not to the applicant and or his associates. And comments from the public should address specific criteria of the zoning regulations, the merits of the application, and be new information and not a repeat of comments previously presented. Members of the public are expected to practice appropriate etiquette by being quiet, observant, and respectful. Disruptive attendees may be removed from verbally participating. Commissioner Amato, would you please read the legal notice for our first public hearing?
Sure. Initiation of application 22-21, Alan Time, attorney at 2 Mountain View Drive, assessors map 65, lot 7, on 3.23 acres in an LIP zone for a special exception application for an automotive service, office, and moderate retail facility. Property is generally bounded as follows: northeasterly by Ivy Brook Road, easterly by 20 Ivy Brook Road, southerly by 10 Mountain View Drive, northwesterly by 7 Ivy Brook Road and 9 Mountain View Drive.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner Amato. So I think the applicant is present. So Attorney Tyler, could you identify yourself for the record and proceed?
Indeed, I will. Thank you very much to commission members here and there. We get used to hybrid presentations when I have to go on a court work. None of this is ever easy, so I'll apologize in advance in case I'm not fielding what everybody wants to hear.
Mhm.
But I'll try to make sure I respond to everything that's questioned of me. We have a statement of use. If I can give you a little background. This particular application that comes before you is the result of a lot of hard work by members of your staff, including Alex and Alexandra, and also Tony Panico, because the regulations of the city of Shelton do not contain any addressing of something like this activity
Mhm.
or this particular, shall I say, entity.
Okay, Attorney Town, could you just hold that thought for a minute, because I should have remarked after the legal notice was read that this application was accepted for review on September 13th, 2022. Posted on the city's website is the application for special exception, statement of use, site demolition and construction plans, exterior elevations, and approval notice from the ZBA. And Mr. Rossetti, just for the record, were any other reports, materials, or correspondence received? No, so we have nothing further to be announced for the record. So there you go. Go ahead.
Thank you. So again, back to your city's boards, because there's no provision within the current regulations to address EVs or electric vehicles, and because this is not of the same type, although it may be automotive, but as being now a driver of an EV, we don't stop at gas stations, and there's very little in terms of the maintenance that you would have with normal cars, because you don't have engines, you don't have oil. And so this particular operation, which would be located as indicated, so it's a corner property, it's raised property, it's off of Ivy Brook Drive, and you'll see it as being pulled up here. So it's well buffered, and again, it's an existing building. So we would do some minimal, shall we say, changes, which would be mostly signage to the exterior. But most everything is going to be done by virtue of construction and reconstruction within the confines of the existing building. So back to the fact of the Shelton ZBA, they recognize the uniqueness of this operation. And because of the lack of addressing it through the current zoning regulations, and based upon a very articulate indication by your planning and zoning administrator, they favorably acted on it, and they suggested that a conditional approval be granted, which it was, to service vehicles, these electric vehicles, and as a pickup location for any vehicles that might be purchased remotely without allowing at this time for any sales or test drive activities. The particular location, again, we could pull that up, Alex. But because of how it sits up high, there probably will be no interference whatsoever. One of the issues we had was parking. On one of the maps that we've submitted, we feel there's more than adequate parking for the operations that would be there. You can review that. Again, I brought the boards here for the members who are here, but it's also in our presentation mode. So that the vehicles will access it off of Ivy Brook. They'll come up the drive and they'll take a left to come in. We don't expect, again, we're looking at maximum 53 employees is what is being thought. And those would be workers on site. And so when that vehicle comes in, as you'll see on the drawing there, there's plenty of room for turnaround in case there's any vehicles that would have to be dropped off for pickup. One of the questions that was raised was making sure there wouldn't be any activity on the roadway, and there would not be any activity on the roadway.
Excuse me, Attorney Tamman, when you say about if vehicles have to be dropped off, are you talking about they're coming individually or they're coming on a
So
car trailer?
there are, well, individually at this point of time, because it's primarily a service center.
Mhm.
At some point of time, when the state decides to act on the remote sale of vehicles a la Tesla,
Mhm.
then we'll know if we're going to be dropping off vehicles there. There may be some vehicles that could be brought remotely, although it would be very few of those, in case they had to be picked up to be serviced at the location.
So they may be coming on a carrier.
They might be, and then that's somewhere down the road.
Okay.
That's not an expectation at this point in time. But understand that, again, with remote sales, it would be pickup, delivery, and then pickup at the site
Okay,
without anything else.
if they do come on a carrier, there's ample turnaround.
There is ample turnaround, and we looked at that, and my clients are satisfied. They understand that that's part of the approval process. Because we don't want any activity, and the city has been very consistent. with
Right, where
this.
they would drop off on the road and have to
That's
drive
right.
in.
That's
Mhm.
correct.
And that's whole part of the process is that someone who wants one of these vehicles from this particular manufacturer orders it online or
It's
something,
all online.
and it comes from out of state.
Everything is done,
Okay.
purchase and sale and payment, all being done online. The
Honestly.
only thing they're coming there for is to get the vehicle that's actually been brought inside, made ready for delivery. They come there, they pick it up, and they leave.
What are these 53 employees doing?
Well, I have, I believe, some of my staff from Rivian here. They can address it
Yeah.
specifically. But, you know, when you're dealing with servicing of vehicles, there are 3 vehicles being made by Rivian at this time. And if I can just go back a moment, again,
Sure.
just for context. There was a recent Time article talking about, and I kind of brought a copy of it here. I haven't put it in as an exhibit, but I'll just reference it. The 100 most influential companies. And the second noted company is Rivian. Rivian is basically a construct originally out of California. They have basically a factory outside of Illinois. And they've now worked out a deal with Atlanta, Georgia, in which they're going to build it. Not sure what the square footage is. It may be something like 1 million square feet, but they're going to be doing vehicular. And I believe they're probably going to be making eventually batteries as well as going and making vehicles down there. The 3 vehicles that they tend to deal with, and it's part of our presentation, I think, in there.
Yeah.
So they have a truck and they have an SUV
Right.
and they also have a delivery vehicle. And as we're looking at deliveries, one of their major investors is Amazon. And Amazon does all of these wonderful deliveries. And the ideal situation would be for that to be done in honor of the environment, to be done electrically through the batteries and not influence negatively the environment. So that's the commercial van that Alex has just pulled up.
Mhm.
And so they do that, but again, this is not a site in which they would be making these vehicles. This is a site that, again, of the 169 towns here in the state, they've worked with me, chosen this particular site, and chosen the city of Shelton to be their inaugural experience in the state of Connecticut. There's no additional plans that they have at this point in time to have any other site in the state of Connecticut. They do have something in Massachusetts, and they will have something down in Georgia. And they do have something in the Midwest and out.
So they would drop off, they would also service if the battery had to be replaced or a motor had to be replaced. Would they do
Well,
that?
there's no
there?
motor.
Here's
There's
consent.
no motor. It's only batteries. There's no motor dealing with this. It's,
Well, there's an electric motor, I'm
there's
talking.
an electric motor, yes.
Right.
Wheel alignment, hardware replacement, software programming,
Okay.
as well as the pre-delivery inspections.
And some of these, I'm sure some of these 53 employees are clerical too. and sec-
Oh, absolutely.
yeah.
They're not just gonna work in there.
Right.
And again, in the presentation boards, I think you'll see there's some spaces for where they're going to be working. There's some spaces for a customer lounge to the extent. it needs to
I
be.
did see an ad on TV for Rivian. I think it was on the golf
Can
channel
you
or
tell
something.
me the names of, I have Ray Lee on.
Mivre Lee, okay, who's the designer, and Sylvia Brandy is involved in lots of different operational items, and they're the two people who are with me on.
Okay, they're both attending. Ray Lee has already raised her hand. So if you'd like them to speak, they can speak. with
Yeah, why don't, Mivre, if you want to add to what I've already stated, please do.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having us. Thank you, Alan, for presenting. I just raised my hand just to answer any questions you guys had. I know you had a question of what our employees would be doing specifically at our service centers. So it's just to tag on to what Alan was saying. Most of our employees here will be doing the servicing for our electric vehicles. Again, at this location, they would be doing any tire changing, any wheel alignment. There are computer hardware replacements, any door handles that need to be switched out, windshield wiper fluid replacement, any of the hardware updates that needs to be done. So these are all done for both our Amazon client and then our customers who own our electric vehicles.
Would be the hours of operation.
The hours of operation here at this service center currently would be Monday through Saturday from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Second shifts are dependent on how busy we would be.
What do you mean by second shift? From 7?
Second shifts, the hours are unknown currently, but they would be made dependent on our needs for our Amazon vehicles and other work that will need to be done.
So it could last till 12 or 1 o'clock in the morning. Is that what you're saying? As far as the second shift is concerned?
Correct.
Can you give us a comparison with other service centers as to what their hours are for a second shift?
Second shift hours are unknown at this time, but all servicing done for the second shifts would be done inside the building.
Well, you have a service center in Mass, so what, do they have a second shift there or no?
For other locations, are you asking?
Yeah, for other locations.
Currently, for other locations, we do not have second shifts.
Okay.
I think we're being presumptive and hopeful.
Mhm.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
we're certainly not going to be interfering with any neighbors or anything else. As Ray was saying, everything is done as bid. So there'd be no expectation.
Okay.
So this would be for the whole state of Connecticut, or what would the region be?
Well, this is the only spot that they have at this point in time.
Yeah,
And I think that the expectation is, again, they're closer to a startup, even though they've been out since 2009. So until the operation gets going, I think this is going to be the primary place.
Mhm.
But I don't think the usage of the place is going to be in any extremes at this point.
So even though they're manufacturing the product, they will service other companies' product.
No, that's not the
No.
expectation. The expectation is we are servicing only Rivian vehicles.
So how many
And there are
vehicles of Rivian do you have?
3 different vehicles.
I know that, I know, I'm talking the quantity that's being sold at this point.
Well, I think it's ramping up. I think there literally are only some thousands of Rivian vehicles around. I've actually only seen one most recently in Connecticut. They're not readily identifiable yet.
Okay,
Okay, so I think I don't want to compare it to a competitor.
no, I agree
You
with you.
understand, early Tesla took a while. to
Well,
get
I
going.
heard the name Tesla before, and I thought maybe that you would prep, if a Tesla came in, you would service that
Mm-mm.
also.
Ray, as I understand it, that's not the expectation. Is that correct?
That's correct. We will only be servicing our electric vehicles only.
Before we get too much further, for the record, Milay, would you please spell your name and your location, please?
Sure. My name is spelled M-I space R-A-E. Last name is Lee, L-E-E. And my current location is at 159 Madison Avenue, New York, New York.
Very good, thank you.
And I'm not sure, is Sylvia on the call too?
Yes.
Sylvia, do you want to just chime in and just give us your spelling of your name and where you're calling from?
She doesn't unless he or she has
I
to
know she was gonna
make
do that,
comments.
so.
So you don't, Rivian doesn't own all the, or doesn't provide all the Amazon trucks that we see all over.
No, as a matter of fact, the Amazon trucks you see all over our ICE or real production vehicles.
Yeah.
Okay, so the hope is
Yeah.
that there'll
Start
be a
changing.
transformation,
Yeah,
okay, and that's, I'm sure why.
And Amazon, and the Amazon trucks would be a Rivian product.
Yes, that's the expectation.
Okay.
I think there was a sort of a dialogue between the 40-something-year-old CEO of Rivian, Mr. Bezos, about how our leader was one of the most dynamic and expressive and reliable people around. And the second part of the conversation was, oh, by the way, when are those trucks going to be ready? And so I think, they're in the production process of all of that right now. Okay. So in any event, you'll see, again, in the statement of use, where we're using about 75% of the space for the service center, and the front area, about 25% for the customers and the lounge, et cetera, and related activities. And again, with respect to EVs, the future is now. This is something that's very important, I think, for Shelton to be in a position, in a responsible way, to host this particular operation. We'll put it on a map in a very positive and perhaps a little different way that, we've been seeing, but, I look at it as being a business person in Shelton for very many years and saying, I think it's a plus for the town, operated correctly, and we intend to do exactly that.
Can I ask a couple questions? The first is, referring back to Amazon, this site would not in any way be used for some kind of depot to park the Amazon vehicles.
No, it's only a
Okay.
service center.
Right.
And work will be done with it.
Okay.
Parking requirements are primarily for the employees.
And when we're talking about the electric batteries,
Yes.
what safety measures are
So the
going to
safety
be?
measures are per rules and regulations that are established outside of us.
Mhm.
But essentially, it would be a replacement. So if the batteries were bad, they would basically be put into a container, the old batteries, and they would then be put in, out of this area. I don't know, you may know the location, but I'm not sure there's any battery disposal there in Connecticut. It may well be remote battery disposal, but everything is done in a very responsible, very safe.
So they're contained in some kind of container and
Yeah, they'll be
then
put into
loaded
containers, so there won't be any issues with
Mhm.
respect to
and then transported off the site.
transporting.
What about is the reverse the same for new batteries that are kept in a container?
Yeah, the new batteries are kept until they're being used. until
Mhm.
they're placed within the vehicles.
Is
Okay.
there any sort of fire suppression system that you're going to have?
So
Other
what will
than
happen is
water?
during the process of, so we have to do some demolition with it.
Right,
And in terms of the build out, those plans will then be brought to the building inspector, brought to the fire inspector. so that there'll be
So I guess
dialogue.
the batteries will be stored in a certain area.
Exactly. right.
Okay.
In other words, everything will be done according to the dictates. of the local
From what I could gather at this point with your presentation, the 53 employees are not going to be right away.
That's correct.
And it's going to be
It will
revved
ramp
up to that point when the, okay.
But that's the provision, so we just want to be in a
Right,
position where we
right.
don't have to really come back.
No, I understand.
Again, I think we've addressed the hours of operation, and if we're so fortunate as to be able to run other than the first shift. We'll talk about that. I wouldn't like to eliminate that. I'd just like to say that as long as everything's being done within, and there's no issue about noise or
Right.
anything else, that we don't have any limitation on hours of operation.
What's your hopeful timeframe?
So the timeframe, as I understand it, Libra, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think, assuming we can get approval of this commission, and I know that we'll be going out for a recommendation, hopefully a favorable recommendation to come back with some language. For your staff. If we get action on this at your next board meeting, then we will be looking at a November timeframe in which we would want to start the permit process
Mhm.
for going
Yeah.
and working with the town. And then we'd probably be into next year. And we're looking at maybe a 4 to 6 month construction period. So that by, I would say, the middle of next year, we likely be in operation.
So if you had also the sale of the product on the site, how many vehicles would you have there?
We've
Or
talked about
would
that.
it be
Yeah.
on special order?
Everything's a special order.
So you would have maybe a mock of one or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, again, the idea is we're not looking at this as a test drive site or anything else.
You're not
We
going
would
to have
have
a
something
Dario
there
or
that
something
people
with a
could
bunch
see,
of cars, right?
You know, but primarily this is all done remotely,
Mhm.
so that we're not looking for this to be a car dealership.
See the product, yeah.
You know, it's not the way it works anymore. I think people actually are more favorable with online opportunities.
Okay.
certainly than in the past. I'm not sure if any of the other members of the commission have any questions.
I'll be asking them at some point. Yeah.
Let's see if there's anything else I didn't cover. No, I think at least at this point in time, I'm glad to field any questions. I will indicate for you the mission statement. Has been, keep the world adventurous forever. I was looking at the administrator here who was having his own adventure, I guess, up in Maine. And I think, you know, a lot of what the Rivian culture is to realize that we want to go and save the planet in certain ways, and this is our small contribution to society.
Is there some kind of time frame as to the car has to be serviced that sometimes for your own car, you drop it off
Well,
the
I
night
can tell you
before
From my own perspective,
and then you leave the key there and then they come up and, you know, they call you later on the day, okay, it's done. So what's your experience been?
well, my experience has been, I've owned, fortunately, I don't have a Rivian, but I have a Hyundai Kona, which is an all-electric vehicle that I leased last November.
Mhm.
I have had no service necessity for 10 months.
Mhm.
You plug it in, other than making sure your tires are okay, check the brakes, there's been no service needed.
Mhm.
So I'm sure with the larger vehicles, like the delivery vehicle, I'm sure it'll be a little more frequent than that. But my understanding is these batteries are usually good for 10 years
Mhm.
or more. That's most of the warranties you see. And you also have a longer term culture where the coverage is not the traditional 3 years, 30,000 miles. It's quite a bit more.
But is it like a full day kind of service or it's like
No,
4 hours, goodbye?
well, Mira, you could address that, but I think it's hours, not a full day.
Mhm. Okay.
That's correct. It shouldn't take the whole day. And it also is dependent on what the issue is, but a lot of our customers who will come in with any problems with the vehicles, we try to do them remotely through our software, through online, as much as possible.
Okay. So you're doing some troubleshooting remotely, basically.
Correct.
For those 53 employees, seeing that some of them are the administrative staffing, would they be on a 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. schedule as well?
I believe so. The 53 employees will be full staffed.
Mm-hmm.
Is this,
That is the existing building.
that's the existing,
And that will look very similar,
Okay.
except for the signage. Signage would be appropriate.
yeah, okay. So not much,
Size of the building.
so most of the change is going to be the inside.
All of it's going to be, if you look at the presentation board, you'll see that there's a demolition board, so we're going to have to take care of the inside first floor and also the mezzanine area. So then we will build out, and again, you've seen some of those initial pictures, exactly what the floor will look like.
Mhm.
Pristine is probably
Yeah.
not even an accurate word.
Yeah, there's absolutely no worries about oil and grease and lubricants and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
There'll be no environmental contaminants that are related to this.
Okay. All right. What else do you have for us, Attorney Timer?
I'm gonna wish you a great evening.
That's it?
Back Again, and I'm gonna be here for questions and answers.
All right, any commissioners have any questions, comments, or concerns for Attorney Timer? Nope. Okay. All right, so we're gonna move on to the public portion. Is there anyone in the,
Well, I have one.
sure,
So this is, the zoning doesn't fit because it's automotive. Is that
No,
kind of-
Alex, you want to address that for Commissioner Motto?
that it- yeah.
Yeah, Alex, bring up the standards.
To answer Commissioner Motto's question, that's correct. We started working with Alan months ago, we meaning our staff and Tony Panico, as to how to process this application. There are use standards for automotive services of, your traditional gas station with a service shop, or your gas station with a kiosk, or
Auto
D'Addario's
dealership.
auto sales.
Yeah, this is none of those.
It's not.
Mm,
doesn't
You
fit.
can kind of fudge it into some different ones, but it didn't seem appropriate to do that. So after going through a range of scenarios of how this could possibly play out, Tony, myself, wrote a letter from our staff to Zoning Board of Appeals summarizing that this is a piece of property that's underutilized. It's industrial. This is a service type and borderline industrial use.
Very interesting.
We'd like to see it used, and depending on how this plays out, we can adapt regulations, because this isn't going
That's what I
away.
was gonna ask in the future. Are we
So,
gonna have
The
regulations
the
for it?
benefit of having this as a
Pilot.
approved variance is that it's very specific. We talked about text changes,
Yeah.
but text changes are broad. We talked
Right.
about other language changes. That's also very broad. So we thought a PDD was overkill for something that we think kind of makes sense.
Yeah,
So we thought a variance was a good approach. The zoning board of appeals had their meetings. They granted approval upon them coming to us with a special exception application, which is why they're here tonight. So that's the reason why, yes, they're automotive, but it didn't quite fit with what we've got. So that's what we came up with.
Okay.
Thank you.
I do have the copy of the approval from ZBA. And it reads, to whom it may concern, at a special meeting of the Shelton Board of Zoning Appeals, following duly advertised public hearing on Tuesday, August 16th, 2022, it was unanimously voted that in the application 822-03, 2 Mountain View Drive, represented by Attorney Alan Timer for Rivian, 375 Bridgeport Avenue, Shelton, for a conditional use variance to Schedule A, line 36, in order to create an electric vehicle establishment in an LIP zone. The application for a conditional use variance is approved inasmuch as Shelton zoning regulations have no line item or regulations for electric vehicles, inasmuch as Shelton Planning and Zoning wants to use and monitor this location to help establish regulations for EVs, inasmuch as the location will only be used to service EVs and as a pickup location for EVs ordered remotely by Rivian. Therefore, with due consideration for the public health, safety, welfare, and property values, the approval of a variance to Schedule A, line 36, for a conditional use exception is approved, subject to the following conditions. This approval is subject to the special exception application being filed with Planning and Zoning in Shelton. The location can only be used to service electric vehicles and as a pickup location for Rivian electric vehicles purchased remotely, and no sales or test drive activities are permitted at this location. Pretty thorough.
With that, we appreciate that activity.
Yeah. All right, so any other comments, questions, or concerns from the commission? Okay, if not, we'll start out with the public portion with those in the auditorium that wish to speak. Is there anyone in the auditorium that would like to speak that has not already signed up on our sign-up sheet? Okay, so we'll now move up to members of the public who are participating remotely. Mr. Rossetti, anybody from the public who has raised their hand?
No.
Anybody dialing *9 on their phone?
No.
No, okay. So last call, if there's anyone from the public who is participating remotely and you'd like to comment on this application, you need to use Zoom's raise your hand feature or dial *9 on your phone to be identified.
No.
Okay, all right, so no comments to be responded to by Attorney Timer. Does the commission wish to continue or close the public hearing?
We should close the public
I
hearing
think so.
and perhaps,
For a favorable
yeah,
recommendation.
move forward on it.
Okay, who would like to make that motion to close the public hearing and direct staff to prepare a favorable resolution?
I will make that motion.
Okay,
I'll second it.
Commissioner Amato has made the motion and Commissioner Kelly has seconded. Any discussion? So on the motion to close the public hearing and direct staff to prepare a favorable resolution, that was made by Commissioner Amato, seconded by Commissioner Kelly. I'll do a roll call. Commissioner Tiki,
Aye.
Commissioner Laskos,
Aye.
Commissioner Usel,
Aye.
Commissioner Amato,
Aye.
Commissioner Kelly,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Motion to close the public hearing, direct staff to prepare a favorable resolution is passed on a vote of 6-0.
Thank you very much.
And this item-
Attention, and we'll keep you informed.
Very
as
good.
necessary.
This item will be on the agenda of an upcoming meeting for the discussion and,
Got them all out
to-
of order for you.
yeah, to vote on the resolution. So we'll move on to our second public hearing for application 2222. Commissioner Amato, would you please read the legal notice?
Initiation of application 22-22, Christian Counseling and Family Life Center at 183 Howe Avenue. Assessors map 118-7 on 0.93 acres for a special exception application for nonprofit family counseling service. The property is generally bounded as follows: northerly by Brewster Lane, easterly by 115-117 Myrtle Street, southerly by Myrtle Street, and westerly by Howe Avenue.
Very good. This application was accepted for review on September 13th, 2022, and posted on the city's website is the application for special exceptions, statement of uses and standards, and a site plan. Mr. Rossetti, any other reports, materials, or correspondence received within the time period that needs to be acknowledged for the record?
No.
Okay, is the applicant present? Somebody online, okay.
I'm here on Zoom.
Okay, sir, could you please identify yourself, state your address, and proceed?
Yes, my name is Brian Callahan. The last name is Kellahan. My home address is 538 Stratfield Road in Fairfield, Connecticut. My position is board chairperson of the Christian Counseling and Family Life Center, a not-for-profit agency that has operated in Shelton for 41 years. And I want to just thank you all for allowing us to be here tonight. There are a couple members of our board who are also online, as well as our co-executive directors.
Is there anyone who you'd like to add to the meeting right now?
You could add Marcy Rendy.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Rossetti. And I'll just start by offering compliments to Mr. Rossetti, who's been very helpful with us, and my kudos to all of you for being able to operate a very complicated process through Zoom. And we know a little bit about this because we've been operating through telehealth for our counseling agency now for the better part of 2 years. And I'll offer the disclaimer that I am not an attorney, and I don't know a whole lot about the zoning regulations. The deepest that I can go is I know that the property we're hoping to purchase and use is in an R4 district. I understand that in the map, and I understand that we have to go through a special exception permit in order to operate our not-for-profit mental health agency in that R4 district. As I mentioned, we are an agency that has been in place for 41 years. We have been supported by the city of Shelton with a generous donation for at least the past decade. So we are a well-established and well-known organization. We're not a very big operation, but we've grown over the past 41 years. So we're large enough that we need a space like the one that we are going to be occupying. We're basically moving across town. We have operated at 25 Church Street for the first 40 years that we've existed. We are purchasing this property so that we can mostly use the education building, which is that brick building, which I'm assuming that Mr. Rossetti is operating for us. Otherwise, it's God doing something on this machine that I don't fully understand, because it's not me who's doing that. I don't know what more I can add. I'm happy to answer any questions that the board has or the commission has.
Sure. Mr. Kelleher, why don't you go over a couple of the points that are in the statement of use that talk about the number of staffers that you have and the hours of operation?
Sure. So our hours of operation are from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. With the understanding that our operation kind of increases and decreases during the day. We get just a couple people who come in as early as 8 o'clock, and we have a couple of clients who will want to be seen late in the evening. So it's an organization that doesn't have everybody in the building at one time, ever. We have 11 therapists on staff at this time, a psychiatrist, and 4 psychiatric nurse practitioners who are all part-time and support our clients when it's needed. We have 2 co-executive directors and a couple of administrative staff. As
your staff would meet with clients on an as-needed basis, on an appointment basis.
Absolutely correct. We don't have any walk-in kind of operation. They come in by appointment, and we have been operating through telehealth primarily since March of 2020, and we're looking now to get back in person. as well as continuing to operate. Some of our therapists and clients will continue to operate via telehealth. We do not imagine at this point being able to use all of the education building with our therapists. It's a fairly small operation at this point, and we just can't imagine ever having a need to use all of the parking that we have at the current time.
Okay, there's a description in your statement of use that talks about the building, and it refers to having the lower level of the education building, but that's street level. Is that correct? That's not basement going, it's just a two-story building?
When you walk in that pink door that you see right in front of you in that picture, there's a stairway that goes up and there's a stairway that goes down. I think about it kind of like a split level for a residence.
Right.
So the lower level where you go down, that's where we will have our reception area and most of our therapists.
Oh, okay.
And then the second floor is where the team child care center operated previously. It's a much more open, if we had a need for group therapy, we could operate that on the second floor of the building, the group therapy.
Okay.
In terms of the church building, we don't operate a church community. We are a Christian organization at this time, but we don't intend to use the church section of the building at this time. The lower level of that building would be available like for a board meeting. And if we wanted to run from time to time, we might have a conference, like a training session for our therapists, and that would be a good space for that.
Would that area be rented out at any time?
We don't have plans to do that right now. We're trying to evaluate that.
Yeah, I think that is something that consideration has to be as to if there is a group that wants to use the church proper itself for religious functions, just the size of the congregation, so that the parking is adequate for them without spilling over into the area streets, and perhaps kind of just creating a little bit of congestion there. That's all.
Yeah, we understand. We certainly want to be good neighbors.
Very good. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with us, Mr. Kelleher? Callahan, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. I've been called a lot worse. Unless you have questions, there's not much else we have to share.
Okay, and then you did have an associate with you on Zoom. Are there any comments from that particular person?
She's shaking her head no.
No. Okay, very good.
She's a very good listener. She's a counselor.
There you go. So are there any comments from or questions or concerns from the commission for the applicant? No. Okay. All right, seeing that the case, we'll move into the public portion. So we'll start out with those in the auditorium who wish to speak. Is there anybody here? Okay, we have one person, Walter Cording. Why don't you come up to the podium? Or you could sit here and see the way, whatever you're comfortable with. And your address, please?
21 Spring Street in Shelton.
Okay. Go ahead, sir. You have the.
I just wanted to speak in advocacy of Christian Counseling Center. I'm a member of Trinity Lutheran Church, and obviously, as a congregation, we're saddened that we're in a situation where we need to merge and actually sell the property. It's unfortunately, a reality for many churches these days. So it was very important for us to find a buyer that shares our values and that would continue to be a positive presence in the community in that space. And we strongly believe that Christian community Christian Counseling Center, I'm sorry, shares Trinity's values. Now, one thing that was important to us too, although Brian mentioned there's really no plans right now for the church building, we believe that they will be able to use it and make it available to the community based on conversations. I don't want to speak out of school, but the reason I mention that is that since the church has been in that position, in that location, since it was moved there, Route 8 was built, it's been a nice opening. It's a landmark as you approach downtown, and it's a nice landmark. And we're very happy that that landmark will continue to be there. It's a welcoming sight as you come into the downtown area. So that was it. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Anybody else in the auditorium? Seeing none, Mr. Rossetti, is there anybody participating via Zoom?
No.
Anybody by phone? Okay, it's last call for anyone in the auditorium. Anyone that's participating by Zoom or anyone calling in on phone. Okay, any final comments, questions, or concerns from the commission? Okay, so what's the commission's pleasure on this? Do you want to continue or close the public hearing?
Commissioner Laskos, like to close the public hearing.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Laskos. You're making a motion to close the public hearing, and what about?
And a favorable
And for staff to develop a favorable resolution?
resolution on the special exception.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
There's a second from Commissioner Kelly. So on the motion to close the public hearing made by Commissioner Laskos, seconded by Commissioner Kelly. To close public hearing and for staff to develop a favorable resolution. I'll do a roll call. Commissioner Motto,
Aye.
Commissioner Laskos,
Aye.
Commissioner Kelly,
Aye.
Commissioner Tiki,
Aye.
Commissioner Usel,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. So the motion to close the public hearing and for staff to prepare a favorable resolution is passed by a motion, vote of 6-0. And this item then will be on the agenda of the upcoming meeting for discussion and action. Thank you very much. And our final agenda item is approval of the
Thank you.
September. Good, you're very welcome. Good night. Final agenda item is approval of the September 13th, 2022 meeting minutes. Does anyone have any comments or corrections for those particular minutes? I had just one minor one myself.
Looked all right to me.
Yeah, the only thing that I think that we could clarify is in item 9 or item 8, because we took things out of order for in the public portion. After old business and new business, there was a woman, Miss Winnie Mao. If you could remember, she called in and she said that she has a property in Shelton she's purchasing. It's commercial use, and she asked if she could change of the work and home use of it. And I just think it would be a good idea to include in there that she was advised to contact staff during office hours. That's all, just a clarification. And it doesn't show any action on that. So anybody else have any thing for the minutes? Okay, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
to approve?
accept as noted.
Okay, gonna make a motion as with the changes?
Yes.
Okay, so there's a motion to approve with the changes from Commissioner Kelly. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Motto is seconding. And on the roll call for motion to approve, Commissioner Motto,
Aye.
Commissioner Tiki,
Aye.
Commissioner Kelly,
Aye.
Commissioner Laskos,
Aye.
Commissioner Usel,
Aye.
and chair votes aye. Motion to approve the September 13th minutes has passed by vote of 6-0. And seeing that there is no other item on the agenda, the chair declares this evening's meeting is adjourned as of 7:04 PM.